Good morning. I am Lauren Surley. I'm the Director of Communications and Intergovernmental Relations for the City of San Marcos. We're here today to provide you information regarding the in-custody death that occurred on Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from San Marcos Police Chief Stan Standridge, who will give you all of the details on the case and what he can on the investigation. After that, we will then open it up for questions from our media. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Chief Stan Standridge.
Good morning. At 6:59 p.m. on August 6th, we received the first of 12 911 calls reporting an individual acting erratically on Interstate 35 on top of the overpass above Posey Road. Specifically, citizens reported the following. I was getting off the interstate to get to the mall, and when I got off the interstate, I noticed a guy, so I slowed down because he's right there on that bridge. And he had a bag, and it looked like he was swinging it and was going to throw it at my windshield. But then he almost fell, so I don't know if he's drunk or out of it or what, but he almost got hit by another car. Another caller reported, we just saw someone trying to jump over the overpass on exit 200 on 35. Officers were dispatched to this location. The first officer arrived approximately 11 minutes later. The man, later identified as Dennis Ryan Thornton, was found leaning on the inside Jersey barrier that separates southbound and northbound lanes. The officer identified himself as a San Marcos police officer, and he then asked Mr. Thornton, "Are you okay?" Mr. Thornton made unintelligible noises in response. The officer asked for his name, but the man again said something unintelligible. In a very short period of time, and for reasons that we will likely never know, Mr. Thornton suddenly turned and charged at the officer. And then he stopped as suddenly as he had started, whereupon he once again leaned on the Jersey barrier. The officer responded by backing up to create distance and ordering Mr. Thornton to the ground. When he refused, he was tased once. Another officer arrived at this time. Mr. Thornton had fallen to the ground on his left side, but he tried to get back up. The officers worked to prevent that, trying to contain his movement. They were able to get the first handcuff on him, but it took almost 2 full minutes before they could apply the second handcuff. During this time, Mr. Thornton is grunting and making unintelligible noises while aggressively preventing the application of that second handcuff. Once finally handcuffed, officers made the immediate decision to apply a wrap restraint. The wrap restraint is used to increase safety, enable care, and establish de-escalation by those in crisis. This restraint can be used to control violent or potentially violent individuals, preventing them from harming themselves or others during detention and or transport. It ensures the patient remains upright and in a seated position, thereby eliminating any concerns associated with positional asphyxia. It took several minutes to apply the wrap, and due to Mr. Thornton's behavior, he was immediately transported to the closest hospital. Mr. Thornton received medical care at the hospital for approximately 51 minutes before he was pronounced deceased. It should be noted that officers who remained at the hospital learned Mr. Thornton's temperature was nearly 108 degrees, which was determined by hospital staff. Deputy Chief Jim Swisher of San Marcos Hays County EMS joins me today should there be any medically related questions from you. The Travis County Medical Examiner's Office conducted an autopsy on August 7th. It typically takes 3 months to receive their final report. Concurrent investigations are underway by San Marcos Police and the Texas Department of Public Safety Rangers Division. This matter has been investigated nonstop since it occurred. My sincere condolences are extended to all of Mr. Thornton's family. They are impacted by his death. We have been in frequent communication with them, and we have learned about some of Mr. Thornton's movements prior to his contact with law enforcement. On Tuesday, the day of this incident, he and his girlfriend were at a hospital in New Braunfels for a planned appointment for her. We learned from her that the night before, Mr. Thornton is alleged to have left the home and reportedly consumed alcohol and drugs. His state of intoxication, according to her, was still evident on Tuesday when they went to her appointment. Hospital staff at Resolute Baptist called the New Braunfels Police Department at the request of the girlfriend. Detectives from San Marcos visited Resolute Baptist Hospital in New Braunfels and reviewed surveillance videos. Mr. Thornton left the viewable area of the hospital at 1:47 p.m., according to video surveillance, prior to the arrival of New Braunfels police. It is unknown why or how Mr. Thornton ended up in San Marcos. Do you have any questions for me?
When he was tased, did officers think that he was hurt in any way at that point?
I don't know what the officers thought until the officers are interviewed. The primary officer remains on administrative leave pending psychological evaluation.
Was there a body camera on during the incident?
Yes, this was all recorded via body camera. And I should please ask that the questions come from the press corps, please.
When do we expect the body camera footage to be released?
This matter will be referred to the Criminal District Attorney's Office by the Texas Ranger. The Texas Ranger assigned is out of Seguin, and so subsequent to it being filed with the District Attorney, it will undergo their formal review. We do not, by policy, release body-worn camera until after grand jury review.
You said that officers were trying to contain his movement. Can you expand on what they were actually doing and like what kind of physical movements what they were doing to him?
It's a good question. I think that warrants repeating, and I apologize for not repeating your question when you asked it. The question was asked, the officers were trying to contain his movement. Can you explain perhaps why? Can you elaborate on that? Is that correct?
Or what they were doing to contain?
What they were doing to contain. It should be noted that we have obviously reviewed these videos countless times. The Interstate 35 was still open and still had traffic consistently traveling at 70+ miles per hour while all of this was occurring on the inside shoulder. As officers arrived, traffic did not stop. They continued to flow. In fact, traffic was never stopped because there were not enough officers, and the fire department was just arriving on scene to serve as a blocking apparatus at about the time that we were then taking the person to the hospital. So when I refer to them trying to contain his movement, we know based upon 12 callers that he was running in and out of traffic, possibly contemplating jumping from the overpass. So the officers were trying to contain his movement on the interstate for his safety and for their safety, because traffic was still flowing on northbound and southbound, and literally there was nothing separating them from oncoming cars except for police cars. And on the northbound, you just have a Jersey barrier about that size. That's all. And so they were trying to contain his movement for everybody's safety.
Were they using like, physical restraints, like knee in the back or anything like that to keep him down?
The question was asked, were they using any type of physical restraints like knee in his back to try to keep him down? The taser was effective. It caused neuromuscular incapacitation. And so Mr. Thornton fell on his left side, did not strike his head, fell on his left side. He immediately tries to get back up. At that point, there are two officers on scene, and then they begin to physically struggle with him. They're trying to keep him down in a down position versus him getting back up, and they're able to apply the first handcuff. Almost literally 2 full minutes later, they're finally able to get the second handcuff because of his resistance.
Did the girlfriend indicate what type of drugs he had taken?
Did the girlfriend indicate what types of drugs were taking? I'm not going to answer that. That's going to be subsequent investigation. We'll learn all of those things.
Do you mind if I ask him a question?
No, not at all.
Sorry, we'll probably come back to that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You meant to ask EMS.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Chief.
Sorry about that. 108 degrees, that is, wow. How does someone's body get up to that? What could be a cause of getting that high?
So things that cause your body temperature to go that high, I mean, 107 is pretty much off the charts. The body really starts shutting down at about 105 degrees. When we start looking at cases, when we respond in EMS capacity and we come across people like this, we know he's on the interstate, we know he's been there for a while, we know the heat index is off the charts. So the increased temperature is of concern for us, because I'm sure none of us really want to stand out on the interstate at 4 o'clock tomorrow or today and for very long. So the increased temperature starts affecting the brain. It starts reducing your cognitive thought, and then if you have any medical issues, underlying medical issues, all those are magnified. If you have any psychological issues, those are all magnified. And in this case, when we approach it, we start thinking excited delirium because of what we're seeing. It's excited delirium is also called hyperactive delirium, but we start thinking that direction because of the bizarre behavior, because of the aggressive behavior. And our mode of taking care of these people is simply to protect them, to protect the public, protect the officers or any first responders. Sometimes that comes with physical restraint. Our goal from there is, in an EMS capacity, physical restraint sometimes has to happen so we can keep them from running into traffic or jumping off the bridge. Then we go to chemical, and when we use different drugs to chemically sedate them, and then our goal on that is to cool them off and get them IV fluids and get them to the hospital as fast as possible.
Is that what y'all did in this
So
case?
EMS was requested in this case. We did not actually make scene. We were canceled before we got on scene because the officer had evidently made a decision to transport to the hospital.
Did he have any injuries whenever he got to the hospital?
I wasn't there. I
Speak to that.
I can't speak to that.
The question was asked, did he have any injuries at the time that they went to the hospital? I can only say, based upon subsequent video review, from my own perspective, the only thing I could see visibly, he had some redness from where he was on the pavement during that struggle. I saw no other overt injuries.
And Chief, is it suspected that didn't, no, I don't know if I heard this or not, but we're using Bronco, is it suspected that he maybe was walking the whole time, or maybe get in a car and drive?
The question is asked, do we speculate that he walked from Resolute Hospital to San Marcos? I'm sure the investigation will hopefully determine what happened from the time that he left New Braunfels to the time he arrived in San Marcos. At this point, it would be pure speculation to suggest anything.
So we don't even know if he drove yet.
We,
It's not confirmed.
based upon the girlfriend, he did not have a vehicle, and he did not take her vehicle, so we would assume he was on foot.
You said that the police officer made the decision to take the individual to the hospital instead of waiting on the ambulance. Is that standard procedure?
The question was asked, the police officer made the decision to immediately transport versus waiting for EMS. Is that standard procedure? To directly answer your question, I don't believe it's standard procedure. In fact, if we believe that we have a medical emergency, the faster we can pass that patient off to EMS, the better off we are. We won't definitively know what the officer was thinking until the officer is interviewed. I can look at the video and I can surmise that they're many minutes into this. They're applying the wrap. They're realizing this person probably needs to be a patient, not a prisoner. Fire and EMS are not on scene. Time is of the essence. So I can only speculate that the officer decided, I'm going to immediately get him to the hospital.
Was he still breathing? Did he still have a heart rate about it?
Yeah, the question was asked, was he still breathing? Did he have heart rate? You should know that he was in the hospital for 51 minutes receiving care before he coded. So yes, he was breathing. He was making grunting type noises. He was non-responsive only in the fact that there was no conversation.
Did the girlfriend indicate that something like this has ever
Did the girlfriend indicate that this type of behavior has happened before? We know some of those answers, but I don't want to disclose it at this point. It's too early in the investigation.
Could you describe in more detail what the wrap consists of? Like, is it a vest that's put around him?
Yeah. Can I describe in more detail what the wrap restraint consists of? The wrap restraint is actually a multimodal piece of equipment. So in other words, it comes in a bag, a kit, almost envision a duffel bag. When you open the duffel bag, you're going to have leg restraints. You're going to have full body leg restraints that go all the way up into the upper torso. You're going to have an upper torso restraint. That's because obviously they're going to be in a handcuff position. The upper body torso restraint is then placed, and then there is a connector that connects the upper torso to the feet area, which then forces the seated position that creates that L, so that way the person cannot lie down and go into positional asphyxia.
You said the main officer was on administrative leave pending psychological evaluation. Is there any sort of investigation into this officer?
Yes, the question was, are there any investigations into this officer's conduct? As indicated in the press release that went out yesterday, there are 3 concurrent investigations ongoing. First and foremost by the Independent Texas Rangers Division, secondly by the San Marcos Criminal Investigations Division, and the third by the San Marcos Police Department's Office of Professional Conduct, what our citizens typically call internal affairs.
When y'all made contact with this man, you indicated that people saw him with a bag, trying to sling it or something. What did y'all find on him once y'all made contact with him?
The question was asked, based upon the citizens reporting he was slinging a bag, possibly trying to throw a bag, what did we actually find on this person at the time we made contact? We did not find the backpack. By this time, it's already nightfall. We did not find the backpack. A citizen actually found the backpack, thankfully posted on a social media platform. Our director of communications actually found that post, shared it with me yesterday morning, and within an hour, we had custody of that backpack. So to whomever that citizen is, we know who you are. Shout out to you. Thank you for doing that. As it relates to what was on his person at the time, he had no contents in his pockets, no identification, nothing. We had no idea who he was.
Can you tell us what was in the bag?
I don't want to just share what was in the bag at this point. That will all come out in subsequent investigation.
So to be clear, he had no kind of weapon on him?
The question was asked to be clear, he had no kind of weapon on him. The answer is yes, he had no weapon on him.
You said you've been in frequent contact with the family. Is that his entire family? I just spoken to his father yesterday evening, and he did not have a lot of information as to what happened that night. What is y'all's kind of policy to speak to this family?
The question was asked, we offered the premise that we've been in frequent communication with the family. What family have we been speaking to? Specifically, Criminal Investigations has spoken to the girlfriend extensively. They've also spoken to his ex-wife. We learned that there were possibly children in this family, so it was important for us to speak to her. We had no idea the girlfriend existed until subsequent investigation, but we knew that night that there was possibly an ex-wife, possibly kids. Through our internal databases and statewide search, we were able to identify her. We were able to find out what city she was in. I personally contacted that police department and requested they provide a death notification. That was done, and we've been since in contact with her, meaning the ex-wife. She is the one that disclosed the father. I'm not even sure about a mother. I presume that she was in contact with them. We have not spoken to the father. We have spoken to her, and then when we found out there was a girlfriend who probably had more contemporary knowledge, we've been in literally daily contact with her since.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
The girlfriend had indicated he had alcohol and drugs in his system. To see and hear about everything that's kind of transpired as far as like the temperature and whatnot, does that make sense? And have you ever seen something like this before with that combination of drugs and alcohol?
So the drugs and alcohol always affect things like this, and when you add the environmental effects that he was in, the heat index, the history that it sounds like he has, those just magnify those problems. And if he was on, and I'm not saying he was on because I don't know, but if he was on stimulants like cocaine or whatever, that also increases heart rate, increases blood pressure, throw the heat in, throw dehydration in, throw the mental health issues in. All of that is kind of like the perfect storm to bring about this type of erratic and behavior. And sometimes we deal with this with diabetics, we deal with it with heat stroke, we deal with it with this hyperactive delirium, and those are all issues that we have to address. And anytime you throw alcohol and drugs in on it, it just magnifies it, and that helps build the, like excited delirium. Some of their big deals are they have superhuman strength, which they have superhuman strength. They also have, they don't fatigue. Normally, if you're fighting someone or wrestling with someone, you fatigue real quick and you just give up. If it's truly excited delirium or hyper delirium, they don't fatigue. They will go until they're done, till their body gives out.
We have time for one more question. One more question?
Do you know, I know that I mentioned, did he have any other underlying medical conditions, or if we also have, like, how extensive was his history of
I
drug and alcohol?
I can't speak to that because I wasn't part of that.
The question was asked, can we comment or do we know anything about any previous medical history and/or alcohol drug usage? All of that will come out in the investigation, so I don't want to disclose that at this point. I think this is a good opportunity to stop and pause. I do want to take note of joining us today is Mr. Alonzo Anderson. He's the new Assistant City Manager for the City of San Marcos. We very thankfully hired him. He was previously the Executive Police Chief for the Dallas Police Department, so he was number 2 in charge of Dallas PD. Sir, would you like to close us out today?
Again, Lonzo Anderson, Assistant City Manager of the Public Safety Portfolio for the City of San Marcos. Very glad to be here in this community, very excited. My intentions is from this day forward, we're going to work together as a team along with the City Manager, Stephanie Reyes, along with the Chief, along with the Fire Department, along with the other departments that's up under my umbrella. We're going to have smart approaches, smart strategies. We're going to serve the public in a very high regard, and we're going to continue to work to make this a place where everyone can live, work, and play. So thank you for the remarks. Thank you so much.
If y'all have any further